Hello and welcome to Inside LCSC Alumni Edition. My name is Polly Blasco and I'm the Director of College Advancement here at Lewis Clark State College. And today I'm very honored to have with me two of our alumni from the class of 1943. With me is Joe Duff and Ivora Ward, and welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, and I'm excited to get to visit with you about your days here at school and just what your lives have brought for you and kind of what you're up to even today. So we'll start in the very beginning. Where were you born and raised? We'll start with you, Joe.
I was born in Lewiston, and I was raised at Peck on a dairy farm.
Oh, okay.
I grew up there and attended the schools there, and when I graduated from high school, my mother wanted me to come down here to school. She had gone to school at the Lewiston State Normal School, and so that was my decision to do that, and I've never regretted it. I had a wonderful time.
Oh, very good. And your mother is an alum of LC. What year did she graduate?
I'm trying to think. I would think it was about 1916 or 17.
Oh, my goodness. Well, very good. Ivora, how about you? Where were you born and raised?
I was born on a farm outside of Uniontown. And when I was 3 years old, my folks bought a ranch farm out at on McCormick Ridge, which is only about 23 miles east of here. And I was raised there. And when I graduated from high school, I came to LC, which I love very much and still have a great devotion to it.
Well, very good. And when you both attended, it was Lewiston State Normal School.
Right.
And you met in school. What year was that?
1941, right?
Right.
1941. Joe, you lived here on campus, and Ivora, you lived off campus. Tell me about your experience living on campus, Joe.
Well, on campus was lots of fun. Of course, we had lots of people with us. I believe there were 60 living in Talkington Hall at that time. And, of course, we had our meals in Lewis Hall, in the downstairs of Lewis Hall. And the tables were all set with white tablecloths. We took turns serving the meals, and we learned a lot of mannerly things during that. And our Dean of Women and our house mother, our Dean of Women was Mary Reed, and our house mother was Mrs. Gillette, and they ate their meals with us. But after the war started and the Navy came, then we had a chow line.
Oh, everything
because
changed.
They ate there too.
So much for protocol and etiquette.
Yes, yes. But that was a little while. See, we were there quite a while before we had any programs here on campus other than the regular school programs.
Okay.
And of course we had our house meetings, and our house mother would get up and talk to us, and every week she'd remind us of the same things we weren't supposed to do.
What were those?
Quiet hours between 7 and 9. We had to be in the dorm at 7 on weeknights. I believe it was 11 on Friday and 10 on Sunday. On Saturday might have been midnight. I can't remember for sure. If we had special things like dances and things like that, then they would give us some extra time, you know, to be out a little bit later. But they were very strict with us. I'm impressed at the way things are now, because we had to adhere to the rules or we didn't stay.
Yes, well, we still have rules, luckily, or else.
If we were late, we got campused.
Oh.
In other words, we couldn't leave the dorm room. We had to be in at 7 every night for the weekends.
Oh my goodness. Well, you did have some strict
rules. I
rules.
don't believe anybody leaving school. I think we all stayed and just did what we were supposed to.
Right. Ivora, how about you? You lived in Clarkson, I believe.
Yes, I did. I lived with my grandmother. It was 1 mile and 8/10 to campus, and I walked, and I was a very fast walker. I made that in 20 minutes each way.
Oh, very good.
And I did play the saxophone in the band, and I remember many times carting that back and forth over that bridge. That was when the bridge was that big, tall bridge, and it was frightening for me to have to go across that at nights when I had to attend meetings on campus. But that's about it.
Well, and I know that there were so many social events and so many things that went on back then that unfortunately we don't have anymore here on campus. What were some of the clubs and the organizations that you either took part of or were at least knew about back in the 40s?
Well, we had each club, each social club, like Galileo was the Dramatics Club and the Music Club, and all the clubs had a Christmas dance. And we invited the presidents of the other clubs to come to our dance, and we had dance programs, and we wore long dresses, and I remember my mother sewing new dresses for all these occasions. And we had a lot of social activity, actually. And then, of course, I think we had some all-school dances a couple times a year, I believe. But after the fellows started leaving, we didn't have any dates, so we had to scrounge for people to take us to the dance.
Oh,
But that was
goodness.
okay, too.
Yeah.
It worked out nice.
What do you remember, Ivora, from all the social events here on campus?
You know, I was unable to partake in most of those. I did belong to the campus cadets, and how I became president of the Honorary Society, I'm not quite sure, but I did have good grades.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, you know, being that far away from campus, I wasn't able to engage in a lot of the things that went on here.
Right.
And that was always a sad thing for me because I saw so many of my friends enjoying it so much here.
Right. And then you both graduated, class of 1943.
Mm-hmm.
And Ivora, let's start with you this time. Where did you go after you graduated from college? And your degree was in education, is that right?
I taught in Genesee, and I was only there 1 year, and then I went to Clarkston from there. In Genesee, I only had 16 little first graders.
Oh, wow.
In Clarkston, I had 35 first graders.
Oh, my goodness.
There were 3 first grade classrooms, all of which we had 35. However, they did have another first grade. They had screened those students, and the ones that were a little slower went into this other teacher's room, and she had 16 where she could spend a little more time with them.
I see.
But I love teaching.
Oh, and how many years did you teach?
You know, I only taught 3. By that time, my husband came home. I wasn't married at the time, but he came home from the military and wanted to get married, and so that's what we did. And he didn't want me to work after that.
Oh, wow, that's kind of nice.
It was nice.
Joe, tell me about what happened after you graduated in 1943.
Well, I signed a contract to teach in Orofino, and I taught 4th grade in Orofino 2 years. And I still see many of my old students. It's real neat. I thoroughly enjoyed those kids. And then by that time it was 1945, and so my fiance came home from the military and we were married. And he was in the military a very short time after that, and we came home and moved to Moscow, and I taught 1st grade in Moscow for a year. And after that I had my twins, and that was the end of my teaching career.
And the beginning of full-time mom.
Right.
Huh? All right. And did you live in Moscow with your husband and children then for a number of years?
Yes, we lived there several years, and then we moved back to Orofino,
Okay.
where we bought a business, and we were there until I moved. Well, and he lost his life in 1963, and I stayed there 6 years after that, and then I moved to Lewiston in 1969.
Okay.
By that time, I had remarried.
All right. Well, very good. Ivora, tell us about raising your family, and was that right here in the Valley?
Yes, most of the time we were here in the Valley, particularly in Clarkston area. Mm-hmm. And we had 8 children. We lost 1 little girl at birth, but we did raise 7, and were able to put them all through college, which was nice. 3 of them graduated from WSU, and 2 from the University of Washington. And so, you know, we just worked hard, and I eventually went to work. My husband was one of those people that would start a new business every few years and build it up and then sell it. Mm-hmm. And then the last business we started was the Napa Auto Parts here in Lewiston.
Oh.
And he asked me to take over the office. I had kept his books for the other businesses. So he asked me to take over the office, and I was there 9 years before he became ill. And he had several heart attacks, cancer, and we sold that business after having it for 13 years, right before he died. So that was, he died in 1978.
Okay.
So I've been a widow for a long time, too.
Yeah. Well, I know you both are very active and involved here in the community, and also I know that you have been connected to the community through your family through a number of years as well. In fact, Ivora, doesn't your brother have a building named after him here on campus?
Yes, he does.
You want to tell
I
us
think
about
it's
that?
called the Whitman Complex, I believe it is. My brother Bob Whitman
Okay.
was a charter member of the, I'm not sure what committee that was, that he was a charter member. And he was on that for a good number of years,
Okay.
president of that for a good number of years.
And-
So he's been, even though they were farmers, my two older brothers were very active in the civic affairs here. One of my brothers was a state representative, and he said they lost more calves that year than any time that he'd been on the ranch. So he only put in, he filled a year if someone had passed away.
I
and the
see.
governor had asked him to take over that position. But he didn't want to go back to that. He was just a farmer and a cattleman.
And preferred it that way.
Yes.
Joe, tell me some of the things that you're involved in and a little bit about your family history here in the LC Valley.
Well, my dad was active in a lot of things. James H. Kaler, he was on the school board for I don't know how many years. I believe it was in excess of 30 years up there. And he was on the port board, I think, for probably 19 years. And my brothers were both farmers. And my oldest brother's retired now. His name is Marion. And my youngest brother, John, is still on the golf course that his son runs at Peck. Kaler's Bend Golf. I have to get a little plug in here.
Well, sure.
Anyway, and thank goodness we're all still here. We're all together. And we've fortunately come from a family of quite a lot of longevity. We had an aunt that lived to be 100.
Oh, well, very good.
So I may be around quite a while, Polly.
Well, we want
anyway,
you to be.
My activities in the community, I belong to the Methodist Church and I belong to Chapter BLPEO, and I'm active in those two things. And other little things as they come up, but not a lot of things because I don't really have the time. I have two families, my husband's family and mine, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and another one on the way.
So you're plenty busy.
I keep busy, and I love to garden, and I love to cook, and
Well, very good.
read, lots of things.
Ivor, how about you? What are some of the things that you're involved in here?
I've been a volunteer at St. Joseph's Hospital for 16 years. I belong to Holy Family Church in Clarkston. And I just I'm more retired now than I have been in a long time. And so, but I'm not one that likes to stay home, so I do play a lot of bridge and work on any committees in the church that I can.
Well, very good. And I know that you both very much enjoy traveling. Joe, tell us about your most recent trip.
Well, Gina and I went to Tahiti, and we flew from Papeete from Los Angeles to Papeete, and then boarded the Tahitian Princess and visited the Polynesian French Islands. And it was beautiful, and the people are so lovely. They're so interesting, the Polynesian people. And we had a really good time. We wondered if we were equal to it, but we did just great.
And that was just this January.
Yes, it's just been very recently.
Very good. Wonderful. And how about you, Ivora? I know you've had the opportunity to take a cruise and some other wonderful travel.
My sister lost her husband a year before I did, and so even though she was still working on her 2-week vacations, we took a trip every year. And the last trip we took was 12 years ago. We went to Europe for a month and had a wonderful time. My brother Bob Whitman and his wife went with us. And so it was a great experience. It was we had family living in Germany, and we decided to take a 2-week tour before we went to see them. And so that's what we did, and then we went to visit with them for a week. And then Bob and Pat went on to Ireland because that's where her forefathers came from.
Oh, very good.
And Catherine and I had a friend that was living in Belgium, so we went to Belgium and then came back on home. We didn't come back on the same plane, but we had a wonderful time.
Oh, that's great. Well, boy, I think it pays to be an LC alum. It sounds like you two have had wonderful lives. Let's talk a little bit more about your experiences here on campus. What were some of your favorite classes and favorite memories of the days here, and perhaps even the favorite instructor that you had as well? Let's start with you, Joe.
We had, our classes were all basically the same because we were in, for the most part, general education courses. And they were pretty interesting. I always enjoyed Gus Businger, the math teacher, and I loved Carolyn Silverthorne. She taught speech, and she was my dramatics coach.
Right.
And I thoroughly enjoyed her. And I can't think of anybody else right now. We had Mr. Brooking, we had Tom Croson. They were history teachers. We had interesting classes. And then, of course, we had to make notebooks. I remember PE 11C. We had to make a notebook of games and playground management. We went through all of this. See, we had student teaching on campus. Everything was done on campus.
And which building was that done in?
It was in the Memorial Building now.
Okay.
That was the laboratory school.
And that's now Reed Centennial Hall.
And Miss Sweet was the director of the laboratory school. And she was a cute little thing. I remember her very well. And we each had a student teacher who was, there were a supervisor, excuse me, mine was Andrea Daniels. I thoroughly loved Miss Daniels. And there were 3 of us, the student taught together. Nan O'Connor and Margaret Covington and I. And we would observe when the other students were teaching, we'd observe them and critique, and we had to make lesson plans every day. And so we were quite well prepared when we left our school.
Well, it sounds like it. Very good. Ivor, what are some of your memories?
I love Tom Croson. He became a very good friend, and of course he taught history. Then Mr. Brookings also taught English. He always told me I was the best English student he ever had, but that was was grammar. I went to a Catholic school for my first 8 years, and they were very we were very well educated when it came to grammar, so it was really a snap for me. And I guess a lot of the students hadn't had that formal education in grammar. I thought it was going to be an English group, but it wasn't. I think my least favorite subject was geography. And I remember when we took our test, we were all just there sitting and almost groaning because it was so hard. And one of the students who was very bright, in the middle of the class, he got up and left, and he had an A. And he had a photogenic memory, so he was very bright. But it made the rest of us feel very ignorant, really, when it came to geography.
I would imagine. My goodness. Well, I know that you both, too, have seen throughout the years many changes occur here on campus, and we actually just took a walk on campus and saw so many other buildings going up and changes to the existing buildings. What are some of the things that weren't here in the 40s that are now, and what was the scenery like back then?
Well, in the 40s, we had lots of grass. There were wide expanses of lawn, which are now covered with buildings. That's okay, too. The new library, of course, has been built, and the nursing building. And then I think there's been additions built to the men's dorm. And, of course, now we're getting our new gym. And
the new activity center.
That whole thing, that's going to be a wonderful addition.
It certainly will
because
be.
our gym was old. We had our swimming pool downstairs in that gym, and I remember taking swimming classes down there. And in the upstairs of the Student Union building, is it still there?
It is.
Okay.
It's changed some.
Yes.
We'll need to walk over there.
That was the ballroom. And then the
okay.
main floor was sort of our activity center where we met. And I remember we had some records you played, and one day our Dean of Women went in and got one of those records and broke it. We played it over and over. It just about drove her crazy. But we went there to meet friends and just to visit, and we could dance or do whatever we wanted to.
Well, very good.
And all, of course, the dorms, as I mentioned coming over here, I remember when the trees along the walk at Talkington Hall were not very big.
Yes, many changes over the years. Ivora, any additions to the changes on
No,
campus?
you know, where she lived on campus, she was much more aware of what was here at that time. And actually, I went to my classes and then went right home, unless I had an evening meeting.
Right.
So it was knowledge of that is very limited considering I didn't live on campus.
Right. Well, I know that both of you played a very large role in your 50-year reunion, which took place in 1993. And could you tell us a little bit about the planning and all that went on during those wonderful weeks of, I guess, planning for the big reunion that occurred in July of '93?
We had a friend at Grangeville, Jerry Robertson Foster, who encouraged Ivor and me to do this.
Oh.
And so how to start. And I didn't know what to do, and my friend Marilyn Sweeney suggested that I call the school, call the alumni office. So I did. And I talked to Therese Hightower. I left a message and she called me back. And I asked if they knew anything about helping us plan a 50-year reunion. And Therese did call us back, and she had Ivor and I over, and we had lunch with her, and we talked about it, and then it went from there. That was a year before, probably February. We were probably a year and a half in the planning. So then we selected a committee, and we tried to get people from different locales, and we had wonderful help because they were anxious to do it. And Therese helped us. The school helped us so much. And that's when the Vickers were here, and they were helpful too. We really had a great time, and we got a lot of people back on campus. Quite frankly, we were surprised to learn how many of us lived this close.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And they came, and we were in contact. As we contacted people, they knew where other people were. It was sort of a chain reaction, and we ended up with quite a lot of names.
Oh.
I can't remember exactly how many we had, but we had quite a lot.
And Ivor, what were some of the things that you did when you got everybody back on campus?
Well, we had a dinner one night just for our class, and then I think the following night, the whole, the Centennial group and the 50-year class reunion had a dinner together, and so we really enjoyed that.
Oh,
it was nice meeting the people we had gone to school with, and also meeting those that we had been there long ago.
Right.
My sister graduated here about 3 years before I did, and I can remember when I was graduating from high school, I had said that I, wanted to go on to college, and a friend of mine said, "Oh, there's no way I want to do that. I want to get married and have children." And I thought that was the furthest thing from my mind at that time. I thought I was just so young. How could someone want to get married so young?
Wow. Well, we just have another minute or two left. I wanted to ask a final thought from both of you as far as what LCSC means to you today. Joe?
Well, I have a very soft spot in my heart for LCSC because I did have a wonderful time here, and I learned a lot. That was important too. And it was a wonderful school even way back then, and I'm sure it's made great strides in improvement.
Well, and it certainly has. Ivor, do you have any final thought about LCSC and maybe what it means to this valley as well?
Well, I'm very proud to have been on campus here and to have been a student. I highly recommend it to a lot of people if they're thinking about going to Idaho or to here. I certainly push for LC because I think it's being a smaller campus, people are really more a family here. And so I think it's a wonderful place, and like I say, I'm just very proud to have been a part of it.
Well, I'm very proud that you two were a part of it, and I'm so glad that you're part of the family of alumni, and I want to take just a second to say thank you to both of you for coming in and joining me for today's show. And also I want to say thank you to the audience for watching and listening. And if you maybe have some stories from the days that you were here on campus, feel free to call my office. That number is 792-2458, and we'd love to hear the memories that you have of LCSC or Lewiston State Normal School, or perhaps whatever name it was during the time that you attended. But we just want to say thank you for watching Inside LCSC, the Alumni Edition, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again.